Well, Sleeps 12 itself is a letting company. So we were historically dairy farmers, but because of geographically where we live, it was getting more and more difficult to contain effluent and all the rest of it and large vehicles, because we live in, as you know, a very rural area. So we decided to sell the cows, sell the quota. We were very fortunate. We had a big complex of barns on the farmyard, which we turned into large group luxury accommodation. And my wife, very cleverly, because she's obviously the brains of the operation, set up the letting company, which is Sleeps 12, to let our own properties. And then subsequently, we take on properties, look at projects for other people, usually farmers that have got barns. And we're responsible for the photography and the marketing of the properties. So Jess, my wife, runs all that. That's Sleeps 12. That's the letting company.
But these are not just English country cottages. I mean, tell me about
who? Good grief.
Whoever they are. Could you just give me the spec on your perfect holiday let?
Yes. Well, in an ideal world, we would go to a blank canvas. So just either planning consent or just a derelict load of barns that haven't been touched is ideal. And then we can say to them, look, in an ideal world, all of this will be ensuite rooms, anything from 12, depending on the size, up to a maximum of 25 people that it can accommodate, with an indoor pool, because you're then protected from the weather. You've got all year round use. Ensuite rooms, because nobody really likes sharing a bath or a shower, or more to the point, a toilet with granny. And then just facilities, whatever facilities you can put in, really. Hot tubs are very popular, and contrary to popular belief, if they're installed properly and they've got the correct auto dosing, they're a fantastic feature. A nice big games room, lots of big screen TVs in various places so people can watch the sport while they're away. Good Wi-Fi, obviously, because people need to work when they're away.
Well, I think you've said it. I mean, a pile of stuff. Andrew, is he potentially the perfect client?
It potentially is. Actually, it's really interesting what you're saying, because doing a little bit of research, Sykes Cottages, dare I say it, put out a report, and they said that the key factors were hot tubs, pet friendly. That was the other thing they were saying.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing I should have mentioned. That is an enormous market. Because people just love to take their dog with them, and they do not like putting them into kennels,
especially at £3,000 a pub.
Yes, correct. So for £2,000, no. So we do make a small charge if they're going to bring a dog, but great really, because most of our properties have got lovely big lawn areas. There's plenty of good walking, and they love to bring a dog, and they think more of their dog than they do of their spouse usually.
Absolutely. And they were also saying sort of coastal properties, Wi-Fi, and an open fire were the other things that were top of the search list. But they've seen a 40% increase in holidays with pets, 35% increase in group bookings, which is probably what you see, and a 26% are more likely to travel with the family and meet for a family occasion. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, a very, very large percentage of our market is extended family, because invariably the older generation are more than happy to pay to be able to get everybody under one roof, grandchildren and nieces and nephews and all sorts, and so it's by doing that you're not restricted to holiday times or anything. It's a year-round ongoing.
So Andrew, when you're advising your clients to go into this market, what kind of barriers are you hitting? Because it seems to me, and we'll come on to some money in a minute, but it seems to me something of obviously actually a very wealthy man in his own right, but it seems to me to be a license to print.
I think
I might have to stop you there, Charlie.
Like any business decision and business venture, make sure you do your research. Really, really do your research. We're talking about sort of the marketplace and moving and relocated, and we've seen an awful lot of families, individuals who through pandemic have taken the opportunity to take capital out, maybe from London, and look to maybe the southwest, up to Yorkshire, to the coast, to the lakes, the Welsh Mountains or the border country, all very popular. But you've got to be, it's a little bit like going on holiday to a lovely beach and sitting there in the taverna. Don't let it be an alcohol-fueled decision where you think all this will be fine and fantastic, because that's where the problems start. The other point I think I would say, where there's a sort of two distinct markets. You've got Ashley, who's done his great work in terms of diversification as a farming business, and then you've got individuals who are buying a leisure complex or a leisure business who are not farmers and it's not landowners as such. And so distinct pieces there from the farming side. Really, if it's a diversification, diversify from a position of strength, not a position of weakness. If it's being held on to be, this is going to be the panacea, this will keep us in play and in the game, and you're coming at it with a lot of debt.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very, very valid point, because obviously when you start doing things like something major, as in you stop your farming being your mainstream income, and then you decide to do something like we've done, invariably, because we're, dare I say it, asset at the time of farming, asset rich, cash poor, you have to somehow come up with a plan of releasing equity somewhere. You've got to, there has to be an injection of capital, because when you start building to that spec, I mean, it just absorbs money like you would not believe. But if you do it properly, the returns are there. But as you quite rightly say, you can't just say, oh, let's, get on the phone to the bank manager because I'm going to do this.
It has to be thought through. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you started, I suppose, mild position of strength with milk quota sale recently. Well, it wasn't that much of a position of strength. All right, well, the question actually is, let's say I have gone through the pain of getting permission on a barn on my vast acreage, and I'm going to put up something of the spec you've just described. What's the on cost? How much is the build going to be? How much do I need to raise to do one lodge that sleeps 12?
Well, I mean, to do it properly, going from scratch, I mean, I just need to quickly say, when we started our business, which was quite a long time ago now, so 15 years perhaps, the magic number seemed to be 12, because that was, extended family and friends and all the rest of it. But as the business has progressed and time has gone on, the demand for bigger numbers, larger groups, has gone up and up, overwhelmingly. So now we are looking at properties. People want 16, 18, 20. So when you start building things to that size and to the correct spec, so to answer your question, Charlie, if you're building a 12 from scratch and put all the toys with it, as I would advise, you're going to be looking at least $750,000 upwards. But the return is there, because if you build it to the correct spec, you are busy all year round.
Do you find, Andrew, when you're persuading people to front up £750,000, let's say, for a project like this, they go, yes, but we can do it for $500,000, and then and you are, I mean, I know Ashley will say, but would you say there's no point, because unless you hit that spec, you're not going to get the
quality
return.
sells. And we were talking about this earlier, is that if you want to be in a crowded marketplace, the place of choice, you've got to get the recommendations, your Google reviews, everything on social media has to be on point, and it will sell. And if you look in the year that we're in, with such a busy staycation period, the properties that are still available are, well, those that are probably are the granny's cottage, still with granny's furniture. And those are the ones that sell.
And granny in it, I suppose. But I should just mention on that point, I do actually go and visit some potential projects and properties, and people take the advice on board, and that's great. But they say, well, do we really need to spend the extra 120, 150,000 to put in an indoor pool? And I said, well, look, you've already spent 5, 6, 700,000. Why not put in the thing that's going to get you the bookings? Because otherwise you're just wasting your time, which is
Paper the tar.
Yeah. One thing that's always I've always kind of liked about the business model you're describing, and Andrew, I'm going to ask you in a minute to describe some other versions of this, is that it hits a kind of somebody who might be going to Butlins, but the economy is booming, so they can now afford to go to your place, or there's a recession on somebody who used to go to Cyprus or Spain who now can't afford, who can now afford to go to your place. So you sort of you hit a kind of mid-market sweet spot where both work.
Yeah, that is right. So, as you say, when the economy, or when people are feeling flush, shall we say, then they will take their main holiday abroad. Obviously, that hasn't been possible, so we've benefited from that. But normally, they would take their main holiday abroad, and then they would use us multiple times per year. For weekend breaks, or if they're retired and they don't have to go to work, then they use it for a midweek break. So they use it as their secondary, and then there are, as you say, other people that use it as their main holiday. But we do get lots of groups of friends, I don't know, university reunions and families that like to just get away and use us 4 or 5 times a year. Because it's easy. It's a simple process.
How do you manage? A question for you, Ashley. How do you manage the stag and hen parties?
Well, we hopefully provide the kind of facility and charge the kind of
you outprice the market.
No, well, I don't think we do, because we do get a lot of hen and stag do's. But I mean, it's the same as anything; they just have to be managed. Yeah. But I must say that Jess and all the girls that work in our office are absolutely fantastic at screening, and when they make that initial inquiry, you can usually suss what's going on, and some of our property owners, when we take them on, they say we don't want any stag do's, and we go, well, fair enough, that's okay. If you don't want stag do's, then they take all the other demographic. But I mean, we take stag and hen parties all the time, and I get very little problem. And when they arrive, I'm always there to meet and greet at our own properties. And when they jump out of the car and I say, oh, stag do then, lads, and they go, oh, well, yeah, we are actually. And I go, that's okay, I've been on lots of stag do's, just make sure you behave yourself, and invariably they're fine, You tell them I'm popping up later to check the chlorine level on the hot tub, and they go, oh gosh, and everything is,
Can I tell my neighbour of Ashley anecdote, which I enjoy? So I live relatively close to Ashley and to his holiday lets, and it is a huge boon for a little community like ours, because when the holiday lets are not let, my kids get to go and use indoor pool, which is it's fantastic. But there was a time you have a lot of family groups. You have a lot of family groups who live in cities, who are not used to the English countryside, which is terrific, and it's wonderful to see them getting used to the English countryside. You had a group of Sikh gentlemen who all came as a party, and they brought with us some livestock which they wanted to barbecue. So we were surprised to find a chicken in our loo.
Yes, these gentlemen.
They were there. I mean, it's marvellous.
Yes.
You can't get fresher than
they did. Yes. They brought live chickens in a cardboard box on a trailer behind a transit van, and thought that they would slaughter them as the week went on.
Well, I mean, to your credit, they haven't come back. But anyway, it was a joy to be up one chicken on that deal. Andrew, sorry, I want to bring this back to an element of seriousness and more institutional Cartesian spec, please. Can you have people in the audience here who might be in a position where they are looking at establishing a staycation business, or even leaving a city to go and buy one? It's not just the Ashley model. What else is there?
Well, I think we've seen, and there's been various properties that have been rolling as we've been speaking. We see in the leisure market everything from properties that have got bed and breakfast accommodation, yurts, lodges, holiday cottages, even through to caravan parks themselves. So there's the whole gambit. I think what we've seen over the last 12 months, 15 months, is we haven't got enough stock, an insatiable demand from people relocating, and that has borne through to values being very, very strong. So that's what we've seen there. In terms of making the move and funding it, which I think is part of what we were talking about, part of the theme of the discussion, looking at a business solely as a commercial purchase and borrowing money against it is like any other lending. You've got to know who the lenders are who are in the marketplace. We deal an awful lot with the Agricultural Mortgage Corporation, and they are very much in the marketplace. Another building society that probably has an appetite is the Cumberland Building Society. There will be high street banks that really don't want to know. They don't understand the sector. It is very much dependent upon getting the application right. Go back to doing your homework, preparing your business plan. If it's a business that's up and running and has got accounts, you're halfway there. Unfortunately, the accounts don't always tell the story, actually. I think that's the problem. Surprisingly, some cash gets involved and doesn't always get declared. But that
What are you suggesting?
But that actually, whilst accountants may say it's a really good thing to be doing this, when you try to either sell your business or value your business, it does come back to hurt you. And it also comes back to hurt you trying to borrow money against that asset, because that is the track record that can suffice. So you're then left to using a consultant of some description. I know you were saying yourself you do it actually where you help, putting business plans together. I think using somebody who is in the industry who can verify the figures goes a long, long way to getting the credit teams within these banks to support the applications. AMC will lend on a maximum of 60% loan to value, more likely to be 50%. They will do tranche lending, which I think is another thing that you've used in the past.
Correct, yeah, we've used AMC on that format, and very successfully.
Yeah.
To build two brand new properties that we gained planning consent for on another part of the farm. So once the first one was up and running, and we could demonstrate demand, show the books, AMC came along, and we were very fortunate to obtain planning consent to build two brand new ones. Borrowed the money from AMC, very, very simple process, worked like clockwork.
Okay, so everybody's a little bit risk averse in the game fairs generally. They're a little bit conservative with a small c, some of them conservative with a large c. So horror stories. So have you advised anybody actually on doing your kind of business? And I'll ask you the same questions in a second, Andrew. Who have gone down the wrong path, and if so, where have they gone? No, you've always given perfect. They've always accepted all.
No, I wouldn't say I've dished out
shaking your
perfect advice. But I think I was just saying to Andrew earlier. If a farmer or a builder or a developer phones us and says, look, we've seen your website, we've got a complex of barns, we think it might suit Sleeps 12, then when we go along and we have that initial meeting and we look at the property, the relationship between ourselves and that person, that property owner, is as vital as the property itself. Because when you start talking to somebody about the business and how it works, and they have to be engaged, and you can tell within a very short space of time whether they get it or not. So that's crucial. And once you've established that, then hopefully they will take our advice.
You just say they have to do as they're told, don't you?
They do, yes. Well, if they do, what they have to do is Jess tells them. I do as I'm told.
Quite right. I said they do. It's just poor Jess. No right to reply.
But if they take our advice, then we can come together with a business plan, and we can say, look, your projected income is this, with occupancy levels at this, if you build it to this spec, and then they can go off to their bank and they say, look, we've got some capital, but we need to borrow this. Boom.
Andrew, what warn us about tragic failures? What can go wrong?
I think tragic failures come along often talking to the farming community whereby they are not ready for dealing with the public. And suddenly to have the public on your doorstep 24/7 and having to have difficult conversations. I would say 98% of their guests are absolutely fine. Can they cope with the complaints? Are they prepared to do the hard yards? Are they prepared to do the washing, the cleaning, getting the turnaround on a Saturday? If not, can they get the staff in to service those properties? And that's a big problem, I think, getting staff in some locations.
Getting staff, really good cleaning staff, gangs of cleaning teams, is not the easiest. But we use all local people, and because our businesses, we're busy all year round, so they know they're guaranteed 2 days a week, all year round, which is all they want. They're just trying to earn a bit of extra money, and they get paid very, very well for the hours they do. So that's how we secure good, reliable, conscientious staff. And and it works fine. But also, just going back to the point you were making, I think generally farmers are very hard-working, conscientious people, and I think they, if they're not driving a tractor, if they stop driving that tractor or pay somebody else to drive that tractor, they're very, very capable of doing other things. They're resourceful. They're resourceful people.
Completely resourceful.
Yeah. Andrew, can I get you to wrap up with one piece of advice? If there's one piece of advice you could possibly give the audience here that doesn't include the words "talk to Carter Jonas," could you give me that, please?
Take professional advice from a
reputable
land agency,
or
speak to Ashley.
Speak to Ashley. Thank you very much, Andrew Fallows, Ashley Vellacott, sleeps12.com, and Carter Jonas. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you both.